this way. And the Progressive Caucus, which I'm part of, we basically look at it and say we should be hiring more police officers because we've lost a couple thousand over the last few years, and they have not hired back at the amount that we need.
What do they have now? About 700 in the academy, I think.
Yeah, but you know they tout that number, but what they don't tell you is that they've lost hundreds from attrition each year over the last 5 years or so.
Well, yeah, I mean, Mike Shields from FOP has been saying that all along. You're losing and you're not replacing. I mean, because a lot of officers are taking early retirement.
Yeah, they're taking early retirement. Some people have to take family leave. There's attrition throughout the department, and so it's not just retirees. There's people leaving for other issues, and rightly so. And we're just not hiring at a pace that we need to.
What they say is we're not going to hire because it makes more sense to pay the overtime, as opposed to as opposed to hiring upfront officers and acquiring in the budget all those benefits.
Right, and you know what? I see a problem with that when you've lost the ability to have rule of law in the city, whether it's in the 19th district up on the north, the people up in the 16th who are talking about it, all across the south and west side of the city. When you lose the rule of law, when you lose control of the city in some ways, and what they're saying is, oh, Alderman, that's just a perception. People think crime is up when it's really not. When you get rid of people being able to put in a 911 call or 311 call for other issues, and you're basically saying we're just not even taking the calls, that's where your problem lies. And
is that what's happening?
That's absolutely what's happening. I had a call at Menard's behind my office, that a theft that turned into a battery of one of the workers there, and the police never showed up, and they were calling for over an hour. To me, that's reality. It's not perception.
911?
911. No officers available. It's those kind of instances that are popping up on a constant basis now, and that's the trouble that we're seeing with the setup.
I've not heard of this. I mean, I know that there's a shortage at the 911 center itself, if I'm not mistaken.
That's another area where they're touting $7 million in overtime and 14,000 to 16,000 hours of overtime per month. That means you're 20 people short per day in OEMC, which is the 311, 911 dispatch.
Now, I was talking to Antonio about this earlier. We were kicking this around. He said, why aren't they hiring? I talked about the benefits, but I said, you know, the city's arguing that it makes more sense to pay the overtime. And I'm sure the guy on the other end getting the overtime, I'm sure he likes that.
Yeah.
But how long can he do that?
He can't.
How long can these officers continue to work these hours?
Well, they can probably work a long time, but the question becomes, how efficient are they?
Well, that's the point, right?
You know, are they suffering from burnout? We know that when you're at a heightened sense of, you know, security or whatever it is that you're out there on the street, it's wearing down your body, it's wearing down your mind, and your choices that you're making when you're confronting somebody, whether it's in a situation where it's a drawn weapon, those choices become more difficult to make as your senses are worn down.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, but I mean, you cannot operate if you have been on the clock 12 hours a day, for example. I mean, we are not living in normal times. We're not living in the 50s and 60s. We're living in an age where we're always vigilant for terrorism and acts of terrorism and random acts of violence. And you cannot be efficient if you're working 12 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week.
In the most violent areas of the city.
Right, in the most violent areas of the city.
And then you see as other places throughout the city have lost officers. We don't have enough in other areas of the city. People pay taxes. People pay a lot of taxes in the city. They want the rule of law restored. And the mayor basically says, hey, I'm willing to gamble on basically everybody's lives, their livelihood, their quality of life, by paying these guys overtime. Now, the Progressive Caucus came out as part of our town hall meeting and part of a press release and statement that we put out immediately after his budget came out. We think at $50 million they could hire 1,000 officers. I know that doesn't include all the benefits, but you can look at that number and say, okay, half of that, let's hire 500 more officers. What we're saying is get officers out on the street, restore the rule of law in this city.
I think that as I was also talking earlier, you have, from everything I understand, per capita more officers in Chicago than other major cities, but you don't have the backup. You don't have the administrators. You don't, because the mayor took everybody out of the administrative jobs and put them on the street, and now I don't know how long it takes to get paperwork, but I wouldn't want to find out.
Yeah, some people don't even bother with the paperwork anymore. The other thing is when you look at LA, when you look at New York, you have a lot of other agencies covering for you as well. You have the sheriffs out in LA, you have, in New York City, you have a lot of other agencies that are looking. Port Authority, Homeland Security agents everywhere. Chicago just doesn't have that kind of force out there. But you know what? The police superintendent, he's from New York. He told us in the briefing that we had with him, we need this overtime. In New York City, the overtime was similar. When I looked it up and went back and looked at what he had actually done there, the overtime went down. It didn't go up. And the overtime in New York was actually a tenth of what it is here. So I don't know where he's getting his stats. I don't know where he's getting his information, but it's very wrong-headed.
If I'm a taxpayer in Chicago, I see $93 million in overtime. I'm a little concerned.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, there's more to it, because at your hearing, there's some other issues that came up. Let's start with the cuts in benefits to a lot of the